dum 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 dum
Space between
This is the Space Between podcast, and before I do my intro, let me just say, if you're watching on YouTube, you got used to seeing me and Amy's faces, just know we're back to you on video next week. We're just banging out this Destiny New York 3 commentary. This is for those who backed the campaign, and this is for those who are going to go out and read the book, and you want to know a little bit extra, okay? I'm doing this little intro because Shannon and I recorded this as one podcast, but it went on for so long, we got kind of in depth, so we decided to cut it into two, so it's not this 2-hour unwieldy serpent of a podcast, Yeah, maybe I'll start doing some more recordings alone because, I like this headspace. I like talking directly to you guys. I probably need some kind of like mic cover so I don't get too much pops in the mic, because when Amy and I do this podcast, we're Fat Joe with it, We're Team Terror Squad. We lean back. We're far away from the mic, we don't care much for the sound quality. But now I'm up close and personal, I'm so close I could just throw a little peck at the mic. But for real though, on a serious note, it was fun to do this commentary. If you have not read the book yet, volumes 1 and 2 are on Amazon right now. Our new volume, which is a collection of short stories, is on Kickstarter right now. All those links are in the doobly-doo down below. Alright, here we go. We're going into Act 2. I'm going to break it up with another one of those sweet, royalty-free sound effects. Let's go. Oh shit, I like this one. Alright, so then we move to Act 2, and we're going to be a bit briefer about this one, because this one, honestly, it has less characters, it follows Logan as she meets Taylor and ends two relationships, kind of.
Yeah,
and experiences pretty much the final months of her father's life.
Yeah.
And this is a very personal story, This is, her father was diagnosed with ALS, that is directly from my life, Much of this chapter, down to actual full scenes, is from my life, And that's why, as a writer, I wanted to create Destiny New York, was to give myself a book that I could always go to when I had something I was going through, to sort of be my release,
Yeah, I know. I was going to even ask, do you feel like putting things on paper does feel like a therapy, a release, a diary, everything like that? And, from when I was getting the script sent to me, I could tell that it was. And everything.
Oh, very much, yeah.
Exactly. And, the topic of loss is universal, relatable, inevitable. Yeah. I enjoy that it's part of the book and keeps the book very real and grounded, and just connects us to the characters even more than we ever expected we could be. I cried. I cried when I read that script. Yeah. I cried when I got the art for that script. Yeah. I cried when the whole book was over and Definitely. I read it all together again. I hope that our readers, it pulls at their heartstrings also. And I know it will. It can't not.
I think so too. And I'll say this about the title of this chapter. It's called Summer 2 Without Me. And that functions two ways. Three ways actually. One, it's the answer to the chapter 1 title was called Without You. Mm-hmm. And then you meet Logan and it's like, yeah, New York is without her. Mm-hmm. But it's also two things beyond that. It's Logan's life without Lilith, and it's also without me, the idea of her father talking to her knowing that he's going to be gone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the act quote is, "You know where you need to be," and that the idea of that theme there actually also reflects Act One too.
Yeah.
But it's very much part of Act Two. So we open with this flashback that shows a moment between Logan and her dad, where Logan is a bit of a disinterested kid. She is invited to go on this drive, and she's not interested. She's just reading, and then she eventually puts the book down and has that moment of peace where they just enjoyed that moment together. And that image is going to be this cornerstone that we keep coming back to in this chapter.
Yeah, for sure. Her childhood.
Yeah.
What else we have going on here? So we have already right away Logan meeting Taylor.
Yes.
Logan is going to a dispensary. Marijuana is legal in California.
Yes.
And she's trying to get something for her dad to relieve him of his pain or discomfort through his ALS.
Yeah.
And Taylor works at the dispensary.
Yeah.
They have a little flirty moment, but also Logan's wondering if it's just on her side that she feels like there's a little connection, or if she's looking too deeply into this. Maybe Taylor's just friendly.
I will say too, actually.
What?
I'll add this. I wrote a story this week. I wrote this scene from Taylor's perspective.
Oh my God, you did!
I did.
I can't wait to read it.
That's going to be collected in Destiny New York Short Stories.
Yes, which is on Kickstarter currently.
Which is on Kickstarter right now.
Yeah. And we do keep reaching stretch goals.
We do, yeah. We've already hit the Trinity stretch goal, which adds a Trinity story. We've added spot class today. And then the third stretch goal, or the fourth, I forget, is going to be a Taylor story.
Nice.
But it's written, it's ready to be drawn. Let's make it happen. It's in the links down below.
Nice.
So they meet, but it is in a place that Logan lingers. She goes home, and we establish her home situation.
Yeah.
Where her dad's smoking the weed, trying to calm down. He is on an oxygen machine. I strove for this to be very realistic in its depiction of the disease, of how it looks physically, of the medication that you take, of the way that it's handled, of how it sounds.
Yeah, the buzzing, and I love how Corolla, she aged him appropriately. You can tell the toll that it's taking on his body, and
and that's why too Logan's chapters. This where in Act 1 there are a few chapters that take place in like a day or so, but chapter 3 especially takes place over a couple of days, over weeks. Logan's tend to be quicker, except chapter 8. Logan's spend a few days there and move on, so you could see how he's gotten more debilitated from chapter to chapter as months pass.
Yeah.
And then
he's reflecting about his time racing cars, missing it and everything. That ends up being a very important part of his life and his story here. We get Logan having a heart-to-heart with her mother. The mother breaks some bad news here, bad to Logan at least, that that the mother and father have been speaking to Bailey. I mean, this for a second can sound weird, but it's not, because Bailey and Logan had even got engaged.
Right.
Their relationship went on for very long, since they were in school together, and then got very serious, leading up to a wedding almost. So Bailey was part of their family life. So, of course, the parents felt like Bailey should know that the dad was going through such a hard time now. And Bailey is a good and nice person, despite her interactions with Logan in the past. So, she was keeping up communication with them.
Yeah, and what's true in my life is that my parents have never been close to any of my exes, but they have been close to people who I was close friends with, who the friendship ended. And they always, when they spoke about these people, remembered them as kids and how they were, and still thought good things about them. So I wanted to paint a picture here that didn't show Logan's parents as unfair for wanting to not just totally cut Bailey off, you know?
Yeah, and it comes as a shock to Logan because she's like, Mom, like, don't you remember what Bailey had done to me? And yeah, they're seeing more of the innocence than that.
And the truth is that Logan even says here that she doesn't tell the parents how, like, the worst of their interactions.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, she kind of keeps some to herself. Yeah.
Yeah, this interaction pushes Logan to kind of go out on her own, and she gets a suggestion from Augustine, who does a quick Google search to go to this real place called Cat Beach.
Yes.
It's this cove of cats that Amy showed me, and it's a real-life place that you can actually go to, which it's cool that if you read this book and you live in California or if you visit California, you can sort of experience getting to know it through Logan, because this is what Logan goes through here is sort of my California experience when I moved there for a while, was getting to know it anew, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I love that in this series in general, when we have our New York scenes, certain places can look familiar or actually be the same places that we know in real life, whether it's a Central Park or a bar or something. We lead to some things like that. And here we are again now in California, showing these landmarks and places that you can relate to.
I want to ask you about this. I realize that I never have now, actually. Logan sees Taylor at this Cat Beach, right?
Yes.
And their interaction quickly goes from friendly to flirtatious to having sex, right?
Yes.
So my intention there was, and I want to ask you how you feel about this. My thought was that when Logan first met Lilith, it was just so obvious in how passionate they were and the quickness of the connection. Mm-hmm. With Taylor and Logan, I feel that Logan is actively looking to find that again. Agreed. So sort of dives directly into it on purpose.
I agree. So here, Taylor does smoke Logan out. Yeah. So they're both feeling loosey-goosey and silly. Yeah. So the flirting is obviously a lot of fun. But then, I think Logan is a little out of her mind because she's high, but then also, actively thinking, let me go for it again. Yeah. But this sexual experience goes so much different. It's cute, but it's also a little clumsy and awkward. But that's still enticing to her. It's not like a failed experience. Right. It was still fun and enjoyable, and she ends up liking, I think, that it's different. We don't fully see that here. We feel like here she might think of Lilith or Miss Lilith, but eventually her relationship with Taylor is interesting because it's different.
Yeah. And here, this is our first direct overlap with Act 1, where we see the scene that leads up to that splash. Yes. Where Lilith tries to color, you know? Yes. And I loved, sort of, because I wrote Act 2 after Act 1 was entirely done. So it allowed me to sort of find the best moments to really harken back to that, you know? Yeah. And yeah, so then we have a little sweet goodbye between Logan and Taylor, you know? There's no commitment right away, you know? But it does send Logan off with the idea that we'll see Taylor again.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then we have this conversation between Logan and her dad that really puts it really highlights the theme of the whole series, in that even though these characters can at times see the future through prophecies, through seers, and look inward through psychics, the world isn't that much different than ours, and that's the theme of the whole series.
Oh, for sure.
Because what hangs over humanity is the idea that we don't know what death is, but it's the one thing that we'll all experience, you know?
Yep.
And Logan's dad asks her if she believes in something after, and that is the afterlife. And she tries to say yes, but can't. She doesn't know. And her dad says, I'm right there with you. And in that moment, even though he's facing death a lot quicker, the idea there to show them as equals there is like, that's going to happen to them both, you know?
Yeah, completely. That's them as equals. She's somebody whose life isn't at stake currently, and she doesn't know what's going to happen. And he's someone that's thinking about it daily and still doesn't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So nobody's ever prepared or more wise or anything.
Yeah. And I mean, Volume 2, just to look back a little bit, had that scene with Logan on her 30th birthday that they ask her how she feels to turn 30, and she pictures herself as an old woman dying, you know?
Yeah.
And that is from my life. That's how I felt when I turned 30, you know? Then we cut a few months later. You know, it's
this is chapter 6,
yes.
Autumn 2, called Blaze.
Yes. Now, I called it Blaze because this chapter sort of highlights Logan's dad, Richie. He was this racer, right? And he lived this life sort of as a thrill seeker. And he is facing the idea of just fading into existence. Fading out of existence, that is.
Yeah, you'd imagine as life as a racer, you think your death is going to come from a bad accident.
Yeah.
And here he is losing his ability to race for a different reason. It's interesting.
Yeah, he the idea of Blaze is like, in this chapter it's two things. It's one, going out in a blaze of glory, and two, it is what happens when Lilith visits Logan.
Yeah, an old flame in a way.
Yes, it's an old flame, and it's how it kind of goes down.
Yeah,
you know,
set ablaze.
So it's fun to see. This page, a few pages early into the chapter, is panel for panel what Eliza drew, just reimagined in Corolla's style. So that was really cool to see. You know?
Yeah. We sent it to her, like, literally just draw the same image, but from your point of view.
Yeah, just to really get that connection, you know, that shows that this is not only flashing back to that chapter, it's going to continue from that scene.
Yes. So Lilith is now in California. The two of them have to go have a talk.
Yes.
It ends up not going that bad at first, the talk.
It doesn't go bad at all, yeah.
They open up being like, I miss you. I mean, when you first get to see this person, that emotion kind of took control, and you just felt grateful to see this person in front of you. You're not fully engulfed in all the but fuck you for this and that. It's like first just like, holy shit, you're here, I just want to hug you. Very much, because the truth is that when I imagined writing this scene, the idea was to work toward their comfort again, and then to have them at a good place only right before it goes bad. Yeah, because eventually they have to bring up the bullshit that they're fighting about. They have to. There's no such thing as ignoring the elephant in the room. It's true, but the truth is that as soon as I started writing, I was like, oh, that's not how it goes. It's going to go really well at first. Yeah. Because it as soon as I got them talking, I was like, oh, it can't not go this way, because this is who they are. You know? Yeah, they are still essentially in love. Yeah, they have a very, I mean, their connection is undeniable, you know, where they've been pulled apart by circumstance, but they still love one another, you know? Yeah. And what I want to actually kind of mention, at least, I'm not sure how much we have to parse this, but here's something that I loved about collaborating with you on this. When we were finished with Volume 2, I asked you, I was like, do you think that readers are going to think that Lilith is too unlikable that she doesn't go with Logan? And you said to me that you think that Logan is more in the wrong for going. Yeah, in a
Yeah.
way, I mean, well, I felt that Logan being mad at Lilith was in the wrong here.
Yeah.
Because to say that Lilith shouldn't care about what happened to her sister and just ignore that,
Right.
that would be selfish.
Yeah.
I mean, Logan can't just say, you know, drop everything even though your sister was brought back and just run away with me. The only option was to be separate. I
Yeah.
mean, too bad they couldn't have done a long distance thing, but after such a blow up fight, they just had to take a complete break.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that. I think both are to blame in a way. Yeah, like Logan shouldn't be mad at Lilith, and Lilith shouldn't feel like she had to go too. Right. It should have been okay not to go.
Yes.
They both had unfinished business in the places that they needed to be.
Yeah. It's when I look back, Volume 2 is full of a lot of Logan being like, "Hey, something crazy happened with me and your sister. Are you okay with this?"
Yeah.
And Lilith saying a lot of, "Fuck her. She's not my sister," you know?
Yeah.
And I think that Logan believed that a little bit too much.
She did.
You know?
That, and you can't always believe what someone's saying. There's usually a deeper thing. And I love that loss of communication here too, because that's just realistic.
Yeah.
It's so hard to communicate your feelings, especially when you're trying to suppress them.
Now, how'd you feel about this? This is kind of rough.
This was sad, yeah. So Richie has the dad Richie has a party that's going to be happening.
Yeah.
And Logan, of course, was going to bring her new thing, Taylor. And as soon as Lilith shows up, Taylor gets that phone call of, "Nah, you can stay home."
Yeah. And Logan hides it pretty well,
Yeah.
but at the same time, she was on the phone with Taylor 10 minutes prior, preparing for this.
Yeah.
And yeah, Taylor handles it very well. She kind of she makes it easy for Logan. And then at the end, only at the end, we show her disappointment.
Yeah.
And I think through that, we see that Taylor is probably a bit more into Logan than Logan is at this point, at least.
Already, yeah. A bit more into her. But also, I think knowing, like, all right, we can't move too quickly. She is an innocent. She doesn't mistrust Logan right now, thinking, oh, Logan must be with another woman. No, she just is believing and trusting. And in this scene, Taylor is by her marijuana plants that she is cultivating a special serum with and everything, which is a part of her character that is important. That
is important. And to plant a seed is a fucking horrible pun, but we planted the seed early on that Taylor's working on this blend of magic and marijuana, because one of my early thoughts is more asking myself, what is weed like in a world where magic is real, you know? And
it must be tampered with.
Yeah.
How could it not be?
Exactly. So
the psychedelic world in general could be a form of magic. So of course, as simple of a pot plant could be tampered with here.
And making Taylor a seer, and the way that it came together was just a lot of asking questions. I thought of Dro, you know, like hydroponically grown weed.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's interesting. Seers have waters in their basins, and that water itself has a mystical property once it's been used. So I started to think about that, you know, and that fed into my idea for Taylor developing a strain of weed that could give someone for a brief amount of time her powers, you know?
Yeah. It was an awesome idea. I love what it played in the story.
And then we have Logan at the same table as Lilith and Bailey, you know?
And their last interaction, which they show in a flashback here, is Lilith holding a gun at Bailey, thinking that Bailey had something to do with Arvid being after Logan and hurting Logan or anything like that.
Right.
But it wasn't Bailey's fault. She was innocent, but there's total tension between them. We have this adorable scene of the mother and Richie. What's the mother's name?
Teresa.
Yeah. Teresa and Richie having an intimate dance moment here. I love this. This is adorable.
This is an actual moment from live captured on film that I have. Yeah.
Oh, it's on film and everything?
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
I gave Corolla that to draw this scene.
Wow.
Because it just it showed a perfect moment of sweetness in the middle of this sickness,
Yeah.
And it happens in the middle of something very frustrating for Richie, in that he is having a hard time being physically heard.
Yeah.
His voice, his vocal cords aren't as strong, so it's hard for him to be heard,
Yeah.
And then seeing this moment sort of gets Logan in her feelings, so she goes outside and has this little peacemaking conversation with Bailey, where at the same time we have inside Lilith and Richie, who in Volume 1 had a less than stellar first meeting time,
Yeah, Richie could be pretty grumpy in the past, and here he is now actually telling Lilith, take a second chance, like, you did make my daughter happy. I'm sorry for just judging that or putting a wall up between us, like, kind of him hoping that they do get back together.
Yeah.
Which is sweet.
My favorite moment is when he tells her that he smokes out of a bong now, too.
Yeah. That was the funny splash page with, Lilith with a bong when they walked in.
And that actually, that came from this thing where, as a kid, I always thought about how you hide a lot of the things that you do from your parents. And then in my 30s especially, like, I don't hide any of that anymore,
No, well, you also realize that your parents most likely have been through the same stuff.
Definitely.
It's when they were kids too, yet here, when you're in it, you just hide it too.
Definitely.
But yeah, so we have this conversation going on outside with Logan and Bailey, and they're doing good. They're talking well. Lilith comes outside and starts to start trouble, but calms down again, but accidentally lets something slip out that reveals that she has been in contact with Arvid.
Yes.
When Logan hears this, the blow up happens.
Now, I'll say this. I understand Lilith's role in her interactions with Arvid.
Me too. She can't avoid it.
Right.
Arvid is the caretaker of song right now.
Yes.
Lilith isn't going to sit there day in and day out, watching song.
Right.
She's leaving that to Arvid. You fucking do that, But
Yeah. I do though think that Logan is in the right to react this way.
Yeah. I mean, what happened to her from Arvid? Arvid had almost went to torture her. I mean, had her chained up trying to get answers from her. And it did bring Song back, what Arvid did, but it was scary for Logan, and for Logan to know that Lilith is still hanging out with this dangerous person.
Yeah. It paints a dark picture of what Lilith is doing, and also it's sort of like,
do you even care about me?
How could you not think of me every time you see him?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and at that point, first, Lilith does try to explain, but then she realizes that she can, and she very quickly just goes.
Yeah. She understands, and she walks out. We have Lilith had went back to the house to get her bags, and when Logan gets home, they have another heart-to-heart. And now Logan has cooled down a bit, and they do properly say goodbye and kiss, and they still care about each other, but that was fucked up, and they're not together still. They're just going their separate ways once again.
Yeah, and that is a rough... I mean, it's rough, but also I knew that this was the last time that they would interact in this book, so I didn't want to leave it on that harsh moment. I just wanted to give a bit of peace.
No.
Because the truth is, and there's a conversation about this right now, based on a show I won't mention because I don't want to give any spoilers out. But what is the reason why readers or fans of a show, a book, a movie, why do they come back? What is the core, right? When you have a book where characters can come and go, characters can live and die, I think that that's great to have. It's great to have a book that moves like life. It's great to have a book that has risk. But at the same time, I think that when you introduce a story, there is an unspoken bond with the audience, right? That is like, it's an agreement. Mm-hmm. It's why they keep coming back.
Yeah.
We're not going to have, and this of course is everything except going up to the end of a story. A story I feel can end whatever way is right. However, in the work leading up to a story, especially in like a volume 3 of a long series, there's an unspoken contract that you don't go too far, I think. Mm-hmm. Like Buffy, Willow, and Xander in Buffy.
Yeah.
They're generally safe.
Yeah.
Harry, Hermione, Ron. You can play with like putting someone in danger, but if Ron dies in book 4, there's going to be fewer people coming back for book 5, right? Yeah. The core of Destiny New York is the lives of Logan and Lilith.
Yeah.
Knowing that they're going to continue to be separate from volume 3 into volume 4, I felt that I had to give readers that, that they needed that moment of peace.
Definitely. And it's relatable to even have those feelings of I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you.
Right.
So yeah, it's just, it keeps that hope alive that as we go forward that they'll still have a shot here.
Definitely. And then we go into the chapter 7 this is, right? Yeah, chapter 7 is called Winter 2 What If? And now this is where we see Logan finally striving to find her place in California. With the end of the previous chapter, she was able to realize that she had not allowed herself to find herself again here. She was busy mourning what she left in New York. That she wasn't trying to be active. She wasn't trying to really bond with her father in a meaningful way. She was missing out on moments because she was so hurt over what she left behind. But now that she'd ended things 100% with Lilith in the previous chapter, now she's ready to accept Taylor into her life. She's ready to be closer to her dad and spend time at home and really explore California.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to have the last moment of them in volume 2 was outside of a burning car. I mean, that needed a resolution there.
Yeah.
They can't just leave it at that. So I agree. Now that they had a second time separating, it was her letting go and being like, all right, I'm here now. I can let that go and focus on my dad and everything going on here.
It's true. And I think that happens too with people when they break from a pattern, right? Mm-hmm. I remember 2 specific things. One very relevant here is we had this panel of Logan enjoying Mexican food for the first time out in California. That I wrote that because when I first moved to California, what I was looking for was for a place that made bagels as good as New York. I was looking for a place that made pizza like New York. I didn't find what was good about California until I left behind what I missed about New York. When I left that behind, I found delicious Mexican food.
You're right. You can't compare. You have to just embrace what that place has to offer. Yeah, you gotta
find you gotta find what you'll miss about the new place if and when you leave there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a very pattern-driven person. I remember when I first moved, Amy and I had just driven back from California. I moved back to New York, and she moved to New York for the first time. Our first night in the new apartment, we got here kind of late. So we settled in a bit, and then I went driving to try to find a place to get light bulbs, and trying to find that, and even navigating the car out of our apartment complex, I came back and I started to cry. I was like, why did we move? Like, this is so different. And I just felt that change made me feel isolated. And I also fought that change for a while too. But once I found my rhythm here, it was better, you know?
Yeah.
And that's Logan here.
Yeah, it's always difficult in the change moment. But yeah, settling in always helps.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, we have moments with Richie once again looking at his racing past. He makes a phone call asking for a favor. We jump away now into Logan has Augustine come visit, which is a lot of fun.
First.
What?
How baby boomer is it that he says yellow on the phone? You know?
Yellow.
Yeah, but yeah, we have Augustine coming back, and that is two things. One, it's fun to have him around.
Yeah, to tie things in.
Definitely. And two, it's kind of reaching out a hand to the reader, because I want them to always remember why they love the first two, and just bringing Augustine here. I needed to have a book that had Logan and Augustine instincts together.
Yeah,
know?
they're very close friends, and Augustine picks Logan's side here. You know, he doesn't agree with what Lilith did. He's Team Logan all the way. We need shirts that say Team Lilith and Team Logan.
We do. That's funny.
But yeah, so him getting to meet Taylor is already him like, oh, I like this relationship and these two together.
Yes.
So
actually, you know what's funny? I was in marketing the short stories volume. I pulled that page from volume 1 where Augustine first sees Lilith, and it had me thinking, like, for 2 volumes now I've been writing an Augustine who hates her.
Yeah.
And it was kind of fun to look back and see when he was just first getting to know her too.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And he always kind of doubted her and told Logan to just move slow. You know, it seems pretty intense.
Yeah.
So he's always had something about her.
Yeah.
But in volume 3, when she first comes in, he is disdainful, you know?
Oh, yeah. He hates her.
Oh, and volume 4 gets so much more intense,
Exactly.
You know? So yeah, it's a big difference to see Augustine coming into this and meeting her and definitely approving of her, you know?
Oh, yeah. Approves of Taylor right away.
Yeah. And also too, we see Taylor's landlord and his pet alligator,
which is from real life.
Yeah, that's from real life too, you know. And that's one thing that is gonna come up in a way that I don't think anyone can expect in volume 4.
Yeah. But yeah, so we Logan's taking Augustine around town. We get a phone call from Teresa, the mother, who's saying, "Oh, you're with your father?" And she's not. She's not with her father, and that begs the question of where is the father?
Right.
The father went to the racetrack with Bailey, who we're now putting together is who he made this phone call to earlier.
Right.
That scares the shit out of Logan because the father had alluded to wanting to go out in a blaze of glory, and she's now worried that her father is in danger here. Right. So they rush to the racetrack. Once she sees Bailey, all memories from the past start to come up again of how Bailey had even hit her once.
Yeah. And that first, before we get into that too, I just want to say I love this panel of Bailey hanging out with the Correct Club because there's no words that she's saying, but just in the way that she's hanging out there and flipping the burgers and stuff. Here, I think you get the answer to why her parents allowed her back into their lives. She doesn't seem like she's Logan's ex hanging out with them. She's hanging out with Richie's friends with no problem.
Yeah.
This is what she's into.
Yeah.
Bailey is much more in line with Richie's interests in life than Logan is. So Richie doesn't really even see Bailey as Logan's ex. He sees Bailey as a friend. You know? Yeah. So these flashbacks, we finally see. We follow up on something that we had in Volume 1, where Bailey comes to talk to Logan because her therapist is telling her to just confront everyone that she's hurt or has hurt her. And that's when Bailey tells Logan that she thinks that she's a narcissist. And Logan says to her, you hit me.
Yeah.
And Bailey was confused by that, and we didn't follow up.
No, yeah.
And then finally had this flash where we see how it happened. We see what happened. It wasn't this like drawn out physically abusive relationship, but we do have this one scene where Bailey does whack Logan in the chest.
Yeah.
And that was a tough scene to kind of handle because we have Bailey as this character who you're supposed to you're not supposed to just hate her. She's more than this moment. But it's a pretty bad moment, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it shows that obviously there was so much tension going on between them that, yeah, she didn't mean to hurt her, but lashed out.
Yeah.
And in turn, it really turned Logan off, and it will be something Logan never forgot. This scene ends with Bailey's trying to hold Logan back, and Logan just spits in Bailey's face. That's what she thinks of her right now, because she's thinking, you have no idea what you put me through then and what you might be putting me through right now if you just put my dad in danger. Yeah. So now she's lashing out. She's pissed.
Yeah, it's a hard moment too, because I thought a lot about this in writing it. Spitting in someone's face is a pretty nasty thing, you know?
It is, yeah.
But it's a moment that I imagined this interaction between them since that Volume 1 setup, you know? And in writing it, I questioned it because I was like, this is probably the lowest the audience will think of Bailey, but is the spitting too much to show, you know? But I decided, I was like, no, keep it, you know?
Yeah.
Keep it.
Because, I mean, this whole chapter, I don't know. We've seen Logan in this whole second half of the book, I mean, this volume, really break down. I mean, we've seen Logan yelling, crying, now spitting at someone. I mean, her world is falling apart. You know, she, like we said, had to move to a different place. She's watching her family struggle, and you know, she's breaking down. The amount that we've seen her frustration and anger in this volume is a big difference from how she usually acts.
It's true, and she's been in the spiral, and I think that
you get caught up in it.
She's
really in a whirlwind.
That's why, though, that spiral is why when Bailey reached out and Bailey drove her home that one time here, Logan was able to just sort of like forget the past for a while, you know?
Yeah.
She but it's here that she kind of goes through the opposite journey that Gia and Anthony went through in Act 1, in that here Logan is like, no, you know what? I remember. None of that's okay. And this, what you did today, just reminds me of who you are, you know?
Yeah. It reminds her of why they didn't work.
Yeah. And then we see the reveal of what actually happened at the racetrack. Her dad tried to drive the car and couldn't. They don't talk about what made Logan rush there. She's just glad that he's okay. And then Logan has her final interaction with Bailey and just heads back.
Yeah, this is her goodbye to Bailey. And it's bittersweet. I mean, Bailey knows that, they didn't work for a reason. Is sorry that they can't be friends. But it is what it is.
And there was so much This page, I cut down the dialogue a lot, and that sounds kind of funny when there's the very next page is this big, sort of like journalistic entry.
Yeah.
But there's this panel where Logan says to Bailey, "I don't want to forget. I don't want to forget why we're not together. And I need for this to be the end." And initially, Bailey replies and has something to say, but I just got rid of it all. And Bailey just goes, okay. And she just gives Logan what she asked for.
Yeah.
And this, when I first envisioned Destiny New York, I envisioned playing with format a lot and like breaking into prose sometimes and just having fully written sections. And we did that in Volume 1 when we first introduced Destiny New York. Mm-hmm. No, not Destiny New York. Destiny University.
Yeah,
you have the splash.
Where a lot of writing.
Yeah, we have like Logan describing the school as we first see it. And here we have it's Logan essentially internally remembering and saying goodbye to Bailey. And then we have this scene that recreates that first flashback. But now, that flashback with Logan and her dad driving in the car. Now we had them driving home, but Logan's the one who's driving. What? Wait. Speak it out.
Sorry, I'm pointing something out. Let me just go forward a little bit.
Yeah.
I
mean, listen. If the readers are still with us, it's almost been 2 hours. They're with us,
Okay, so the chapter ends with that.
Yeah.
Where was the conversation?
Here. Oh no, that conversation doesn't happen. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
I'm here, you guys.
It's all good.
Just
She's
making
here.
Sure. Okay. So anyway, when they were in the car driving away from the racetrack, there's this nice part that throws it back to that original flashback of this first Act 2,
right?
Where the conversation, "It's a beautiful night, isn't it?"
Yes.
And then, "Yeah, it is." That's the same conversation they had in the car when they were a kid, when she was a kid, and they went for a drive, and here they are going for a drive again.
Yeah, it shows
it's
what's on Logan's mind.
It's very sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, we jump back to their back at the house, and Logan's talking to her father. Her father's saying that he wishes that he could see everything that's going to happen in Logan's life, be a part of it, be there for her. Yes. And Taylor steps into the room and says, "What if? What if maybe that could happen?"
Yeah, what if you could? And that is the title of this chapter is called "What If," and there's a lot that I plan ahead. This was not one of those moments. I wanted Act 2 to sort of be aimless. I wanted Logan to be lost in how she deals with this. But when I started to figure out what Taylor was doing with her weed, it wasn't a plot convenience that had me figure this out. It was this question. I thought that there are so many ideas I have for what happens in the years to come, and I thought that it was too cruel for Richie to miss it all. Especially
in this world where we have maybe opportunities with magic, like that is, why can't Richie maybe know a little bit of something? We've got psychics, we've got seers, we've got magic elements, like...
Yeah. Because the truth is that in real life, my dad was able to see my wedding. And I thought that leaving Richie in this place where all he sees is just his house, you know? I thought that was a sadder version than real life. And when I was envisioning Taylor and what she did with weed, it came to me so beautifully and so perfectly that, Taylor could bring that to Logan's dad. He's already smoking weed for health reasons.
Yeah.
It's already helping his disease. And it just seemed it seemed as if I'd always been moving toward this, but the truth was, even when I started actually writing the chapters, I wasn't. It came to me later.
Yeah.
You know, and having that moment where I was like, all right, so it works perfectly to have Taylor give visions of the future to Richie through her weed for multiple reasons. It's in Taylor. It's going to bring Logan and Taylor closer together. It's going to give a more peaceful send-off to Richie. It's going to reflect Lilith's vision in Act 1.
Yeah, like Lilith and Song doing a drug together that brought them closer, and now here we are in this with the same thing happening.
Definitely. And it even ties Act 1 and 2 closer together by Taylor reaching out to Priya for that final ingredient, you know?
Yeah. Taylor is trying to make this a successful magical property, but she does need some help, and she reached out to Priya, who was able to mail her some stuff. They had conversations, and it made it so the weed was safe and controlled.
Yeah, and because the thing was, humans aren't built to have these visions, you know?
Yeah.
They needed a bridge, and that bridge was a very diluted version of what Lilith went through with Song in Act 1, you know? And Taylor tries it out on her landlord at first, and he ends up getting a glimpse of the Avengers movies in the future, you know? But yeah, and we don't often do splash pages in Destiny New York, you know? Our full page images generally are broken up in our Venn diagram splashes. Yeah. But I was like, you know, Priya was an integral part of Act 1. So having her have the splash treatment here shows you how how important that role is here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, without her knowing, she is playing a part of bridging people together and everything. And that's why she's in this career. This isn't all weird to her, which we see her even react in Lilith's half of the book. You know, she's surprised of what she's getting caught up in.
Yeah.
But she also works in a mystical environment also, so it's not too much of a surprise that crazy stuff could be happening.
Definitely.
But yeah, so Taylor gives him this magical weed. When he ends up smoking it, he goes into a headspace where he's looking at the past. He sees himself as a kid playing ball with his friends, and he then transitions into when Logan was being born and seeing that. He's transitioning into dancing with Teresa again, and it's cool how Teresa actually starts to speak to him here, saying, "You're getting a little lost, honey. Like you're going a little too far back. You're supposed to be looking towards the future." And then it goes a little, you know, far ahead, and it's his funeral. He sees Logan there. He detours a bit to a scene that hasn't happened yet. Let's highlight that. We have in what looks like a waiting room, we have Lilith and Augustine talking while Andre, Logan, and Taylor are sitting in chairs. Yeah.
And that panel was put there very specifically to make you wonder what is going on.
Yeah, what is going on there?
Yeah. And you won't have to wait too long for that answer.
No.
You know? That's going to be something that we elaborate on in Volume 4.
Yeah.
And then we see Logan getting married here. And this is a much quieter climax of Act 2 than Act 1. Act 1 had mansion on fire. It had the MCA bursting in. You know, it had a lot more magic. This is just the only magic here is this vision of the future. You know.
I love this scene where we see Richie actually going from his walker being a little crippled to now getting younger back to himself, which mirrors how we saw Lilith in her trip going from older to young when she was a kid. Definitely. So now we're opposite here.
And I'll just point out too, we purposely didn't show who Logan's marrying, you know?
Oh, no, yeah. We don't show who Logan's marrying. There's another sweet part of the Mother Teresa feeling his presence there.
Mother Teresa,
Mother Teresa!
Yeah.
She can feel Richie's presence there, which is heartwarming to both of them to know that the family together has experienced Logan's life and this moment.
Yeah, and then we see it ends with this splash that is it's meant to evoke that first splash that that chapter 5 that starts Act 2 ends on. It has Logan on the couch with Richie, but Taylor and Teresa are here, and everyone's view of what's to come has changed, you know?
Yeah.
And they're still in the same place in that they don't know what death is and what happens once you die, you know? I was very selective in making sure that none of the visions touched on that.
Yeah.
Because seers can't even see that.
Yeah.
No, just as we don't know what happens after we die, no one in the world of Destiny New York does, you know?
No.
But it did give Richie this moment of peace. And then we end in a montage that shows where Logan goes from here, you know?
Yeah.
She goes... She reacts to finding out that he's gone. She goes to the funeral, and it ends with this very sparse monologue about how she has always feared death, but she's never been less scared of it because she has this sense that this can't be the end. She has to have hope, you know?
Yeah, and here we actually get a sneak of Lilith comes to the funeral. She's heard about his passing, but she keeps her distance.
Yeah.
She's way off in the distance. She doesn't actually speak to Logan. Logan doesn't know she's there, but she has Richie's car.
Yes.
She has invested and bought the car.
Definitely, yeah.
Which is a surprise that will eventually show.
Yeah, it is, and also it confirms that there were conversations with Richie and Lilith beyond when she left New York. You know?
Yeah.
I think it's an important moment, you know, and also what this does follow up on is that earlier, sort of a cold moment in the middle of something otherwise light was when Logan first calls Augustine for some help. Augustine tells Logan that he's going to go out there as soon as possible, and Andre's like, "Oh, we can afford to go out," but Augustine just ended up going himself. You know,
yeah,
he didn't bring Andre.
No, he didn't.
But then finally, we do see Andre here in San Diego, not under the best circumstances.
Yeah.
And then we end with a flashback to that one trip that Logan and her dad took, though. We sort of blend it with now. You know, we see the hearse taking off, and that reality of now kind of blends with Logan's memory of her dad in the past. You know, and I think that what I wanted there was to show a couple of things. You know, when someone close to you dies, we didn't really have time to show this because we didn't want to the point of Logan's journey is here. You know, it came to an end here. I didn't want to show much of her mourning because that would have felt extraneous to her journey.
Well, and because of the type of illness that Richie had, it wasn't a surprise death or anything like that. I mean, she has now been in California dealing with helping him and watching him struggle more and more by the day.
Almost for a whole year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then her experience with Taylor helped put them at ease and at peace. about the situation too. So yeah, there's not much more to say. We don't need to see him pass.
Right.
We know what's happening, and yeah, I feel like it's ended nicely.
Yeah, and the reason that Logan's final monologue has this mixture of just it shows Logan as a kid riding with her dad in the car, but instead of trees that you would see in New York, you see a palm tree, and that symbolizes the idea that when someone that you have known for so long dies, at first your thoughts are only of the sickness, are only of what you've been going through of late. But at the end, you'll come back to a fuller picture of who they were, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's how Volume 3 wraps up beyond our epilogue chapter. But yeah, it was, I'd say, I mean, this sounds like patting myself on the back, but this isn't just me as a writer. I feel like art-wise, editorial-wise, and structure-wise, this was our most ambitious volume, you know?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
This was really a lot to undertake, and especially when the topics are heavy, heavy to write, heavy to relive, everything. It was a lot to handle.
Yeah, it was this. Volume 3 is this mixture of Lilith making this choice to stop running from who she is, while Logan is adapting to her life in San Diego and dealing with the death of her father, and sort of she stops being that person that has to keep making these major changes, and she just decides to live life while she has it.
Yeah, and reconnects to her family and everything.
Exactly, and says goodbye to people who she has sort of been hanging on to. And in the middle of all that, we're keeping up and really pushing forward, getting the table set for Volume 4. Volume 4 is almost all payoff, you know?
Yeah. Things just come full circle.
Yeah, and let's finish up with let's not dwell on the stories, but
just quick.
Yeah, I do want to hear your thoughts, especially on Joyride, which is your first time writing.
Yeah, we the last chapter is our short stories. There's 8 of them. I wrote Joyride, which was illustrated by Iolanda.
Yes, Zanfardino, yeah.
Zanfardino.
Yeah.
And it was very exciting to do. I wanted to show moments of Lilith and Song actually getting along, because we don't have many of those. I started it off showing Song just comatose, but they're kind of connected now, since they had taken that drug together and experienced a memory. So I explain again how the mirror comes into play,
right.
And they sneak out of the house and they just have a moment together that ends up being Lilith's coming out story, which we also have not spoken about. And Song is approving of it, and it's a nonchalant type of conversation. There's nothing crazy about it. Song calls her out for it, and and there's a sisterly love that happens here, even through a little bit of teasing and bickering. And yeah, I just thought that it would help readers still understand why Lilith has put everything on the line to stay in New York, and that Song did have good sides to her, did make her feel like she wasn't weird for being LGBT, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think it's the perfect example of why these aren't quote-unquote bonus stories, you know. This, what it does is it specifically answers something that isn't answered in the main volume about, one, the mirror, right? the mirror is introduced in the main story, but this is really the answer to why it's such a big memory for Lilith, you know?
Yeah, that's why it was exactly a poignant memory. She's remembering, no, one time we snuck out of the house. I can't remember how, but I'll never forget that day.
Right.
And it's the day that I came out to my sister.
Exactly.
And felt actual maybe love from her.
Yeah, and it feels intimate too, because in the main arc, she doesn't. This isn't a context that she would give Arvid. She doesn't tell Arvid why she remembers, because he's not close to her like that.
No.
But
this
we
isn't
the reader
a topic.
get to know that.
Yeah, this isn't a topic she discusses.
Definitely.
The next story is about Tragnar. Pat, you actually wrote this.
Yes, I wanted to, also dip into the past to bridge the gap between that sort of filled in why that meeting took place between Lilith and Tragnar at the end, and sort of show the conflict between the two families, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we get to see the parents here, and how their interactions with Tragnar had went in the past.
It's fun too to see. Last volume, volume 2, had a story of how Song first hires Arvid, and you see Arvid dressing very 90s, and we get a little glimpse of 90s Arvid again here.
Yes.
You know? And it's what was hard here wasn't the writing, but the placement. Putting together the short stories at the end feels sort of like pacing out an album, you know? And I wanted to put mine right after yours because it's dealing with similar characters and takes place a bit later.
Yeah.
So I wanted to sort of assemble that narrative here, you know?
Yeah, the Aberdeen family.
Definitely.
Then we skip to a story with Gia and Anthony called Floating.
Yeah, this is by Paul Roditis and Manuel Pritano. Always got to get Manuel back for some art in these. This it's fun to see them two together here, especially written by Paul. Paul was my editor on Charmed, and before me, he was the writer on Charmed, and he's a great writer who really gets characters well. And we saw Gia and Anthony mend the wound of their friendship in this volume, but we didn't really get to see them spending much time together outside of the Christmas dinner.
Yeah, or the funeral or the dinner or anything. And here we have just a regular moment of them hanging out, and Gia helps Anthony learn how to swim, which sounds weird that he doesn't know how, but as a seer, his relationship with water is using it to have his psychic visions, and it can be scary for him to imagine being immersed in water. He doesn't know as a seer what he might experience, and he's put at ease here.
Yeah, and that's a great idea from Paul too, because sometimes when I talk to writers to pitch for these short stories now, what I always start with is don't get too mystical, because what I noticed in the first round for volume 2 was the first pitches were always the character solves their prophecy by, and I'm always like, whoa, no.
Yeah, no.
Just root it in character and go from there. And Paul found a way to sort of elaborate on the seer mythology through character here.
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah,
definitely. And then we see a story about Augustine. That this one's written by Caitlin Smith and drawn by Sweeney Boo. This one's
fun and quirky, which we usually do have something a little fun here.
You gotta
and
do
there.
it, yeah.
You gotta.
Just so the parents of Lilith get slaughtered,
Yeah.
So we wanted to lighten it up a little bit, And we also here answer the question like, if Augustine's always complaining about working at the Green Bean, why is he still there? And the truth is...
And why does he sometimes get mad at Andre? And here's a moment where Andre kind of belittles him.
Yeah, and so not on purpose, it just slips up,
Yeah.
But yeah, and also fun here too is that we see a character from Gangster S. Barista that we had only seen previously in that book. We see Connor here,
Yeah, Connor's here.
Now.
But yeah, then we jump to What's this one? This one's Cinefuck It
yeah.
by Jeff Massey. This one is awesome too. Mandy Robertson did the art, which came out great, and another just a quirky story. It's Wally. We saw in this book was leaving New York. He was fed up with the frustration of running the business, which is why he left it to Lilith, and he went to Florida thinking it's going to be a great time, and of course it's not as fun.
Not great,
No.
Yeah, we wanted to show that Wally can't really escape how much he hates things, So,
no, yeah. He's just a grumpy guy and just wants a good bagel.
That's true. And then we have Bailey Ross's story, Magic. This is by Stephanie Phillips and Valentina Pinti, and they had the difficult task of writing a story about Bailey, and the audience now knows about the past a little bit,
Yeah, we don't say how Bailey's prophecy ever turned out. We get to finally show it here. It was tragic and hard for her, and it actually launches her into her career as a boxer and everything.
It's true, and it's nice to see Miss Davids here because she didn't get much to do in this volume because we didn't spend that much time in the school. Volume 4 gets a lot more school time.
Yeah, we just know that the school is just under inspection and it's being watched. We have then a story about Taylor called Visions of You.
This one I wrote with art by Skylar Patridge. I wanted to give Taylor the same that Lilith had in Volume 1, which is a story to sort of give her a moment to just establish her life a bit. We didn't show much of her past, but we do show how sort of a glimpse at the kind of visions that she gets on the regular and about how she doesn't get visions about Logan.
Yeah, because like you were saying earlier that she's falling harder for Logan than Logan's falling for her, or at least quicker.
Yes.
And we see that she's enamored by her, and she is trying to get reads on Logan, but it's not working. Every time she tries to get a vision, it's a blank.
Yeah, and that sort of goes back to when Anthony first met Meadow, and Meadow tried to get some information on her prophecy. Some seers and some people just don't connect in the world of visions,
Yeah, you have to have this type of connection that sparks it.
I do love this little moment that Skylar drew it so well, where Taylor tells Brody, Logan's cat, that she loves her.
Yeah.
And she even tries to get a vision of a Brody, but it
doesn't work either.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And then we have our final story, which is co-written by myself and my mom, actually, that is about Teresa, and also it is very Logan-driven as well.
Yeah.
And this has a letter that Teresa writes to Logan, and then finishes with, it sort of just encapsulates what Logan has realized about herself so far. She's realized that she keeps doing these big life-changing moves, and she's at this place right now where one would almost be natural to her to move back to New York.
Yeah, to just keep moving.
Yeah,
but
she decides no.
Yeah.
She decides I'm just gonna be for now.
Yeah.
And we also have the title drop. We have Logan say, "Figure out who I'm going to be." And the title of the volume is Who I'm Going to Be.
Yeah.
And this completes that sequence. Volume 1 was called Who I Used to Be. 2 is Who I Am Now. And 3 is Who I'm Going to Be. That comes from 2 parts of Volume 1. It starts with this class that Hanley's teaching.
Yeah, I remember
where she says these exact lines in her class about how to handle life post-prophecy.
Yeah.
And then it comes back up again in a briefer way as Logan is at the mansion and sends Song to the blue. She has a brief series of memories that she reiterates this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's this volume was almost not called that though.
Yeah, it had a very simple name. It was just
it was Destiny California.
Yeah, Destiny California. That was it. But no, it made a lot more sense to end that sequence there.
Yeah, because the idea was that what I always thought was that sequence when it ends would feel like a finale, and I wanted to place that at volume 5 because volume 4 is the climax of what's coming before, and volume 5 is a bit of an epilogue that also prepares the reader for what's coming next. So volume 5 was going to be called Who I'm Going to Be. But this one is so much about looking toward the future that I knew I had to pull it and just make this one called that.
Definitely. We end the book with a thank you page to everybody that pledged for the Kickstarter and has been following the series. And we just want to say thank you again right now for everybody that listened to this commentary. It's a bit long, but we have a lot to say, and there's a lot of stuff that we left out. Tons of things of our intentions for the books and for what's to come, and we hope that you guys continue on that journey with us and see what we have planned for volume 4, how things come together and resolve. Or what new bullshit starts to happen.
2.5 hours that we did.
Yeah, 2.5 hours right now.
It's our longest episode of the podcast by far.
Yeah, maybe we'll split it into 2. I don't know how you want to put it out, but
maybe
maybe just
that's
do
better,
Act 1 and then Act 2.
Maybe
a little easier to digest. But thank you if you listen to both. Then.
Yes, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to write. It's gorgeous to see how Eliza Carolla and Jim brought it to life. You know, thank you for taking this journey with me, both on the commentary and the book. You know,
if you have any questions about things that we didn't focus on, feel free to leave us comments on really any social media. You could even send us private emails if you have any questions. There is a reason for most directions that we go in or choices that we make. So we'd be happy to answer them and explain things.
Yeah, I mean, someone actually asked me recently. I got a little burp brewing.
Oh man!
Someone asked me if we're ever going to confirm on page what Trinity's sexuality is, and the answer to almost every question like that is yeah. You know, like I intend to write this series for a long time. Any question that you have that's going to be important to the characters, I imagine us answering in time.
Yeah,
you know?
Everything is a character development all the time. And you can see how many we have, how many characters. I mean, we have so much to delve into each person, which is why we try to do the shorts, which is why now we even have a short story book spin-off going on Kickstarter. We have nothing but stories to tell about these characters. So we'd love to answer any questions that you have and to show you more and more throughout the years and throughout the volumes.
Yeah, and please, if you haven't read volumes 1 and 2 yet, Amazon right now. Or if you want to support the Kickstarter and try Destiny New York short stories, you can do that. The link is in the description down below. And also, if you want to just catch up easily in one fell swoop on Kickstarter, we have 2 tiers for this. We have the Destiny New York library, which has volumes 1, 2, and 3 and short stories. And we have that same tier called the Expanded Library that adds Gangster Esperista, which is the Trinity spinoff.
Yeah, any Kickstarters that we have will always be offering past books, so we hope that you take advantage of those moments to catch up and join us and be a part of what we do here.
Yeah, and I mean, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's it.
I think we kind of talked their ears off, you know?
Yeah, we really did. I'm sorry.
No, but thank you, Shannon, for doing this with me. Thanks for being an awesome editor and making this book the best it could be.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful, guys.
And thank you guys for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Space between. Space between.